Fair. Makes them better.
I love you, Michael. Welcome back to the Flower Garden. My name is Lisa, and for today's Soul Saturday, I wanted to talk about the 7 essential truths about your soul that you need to know as they are described in The Journey of Souls. So a little bit about Michael Newton. Here's my boy, you can see him. Michael Newton is a hypnotherapist, and his technique involves putting people into a deep hypnosis and speaking directly to their superconscious to treat them for whatever ailments that they came to him to treat. The information in this book is based on hundreds of transcribed hypnosis cases that he has dealt with. And because the information from all of these strangers, these people who have never met each other, was so consistent, he realized that it had to be factual. So he ended up transcribing it, and he's got 3 books on the topic, and he basically just talks about the soul journey and the different facts about the soul that people don't know, but he learned through speaking to hundreds of patients. With that background info out of the way, let's get into the 7 essential truths that you need to know about your soul. Truth number 1, you have 3 levels of consciousness. So this isn't technically about the soul, but it's just good to know. The first level of conscience is going to be our conscience, our active brain, our active thoughts. And then there's going to be the subconscious, which is, goes into the area of subconscious beliefs and things like that. The third level of consciousness is your superconscious, which is basically your soul. And it's the one that is the most deeply within us, so it's not very likely that it always shines through and is active, depending on how much you are connecting to your higher self and remaining in alignment. So Michael Newton basically reaches that superconscious in deep hypnosis that we normally don't have access to, depending on the level of your soul and other things like that. Truth number 2, our souls chose our bodies based on the location that they needed to live in and based on the soul needs that they needed fulfilled in this lifetime. Before our souls incarnate on this planet, they basically go through a life selection process, and in that life selection process, they look at different geographical locations and different bodies that will serve them based on whatever needs that they have. And when I say needs, it means completing karmic cycles and ultimately reaching ultimate balance. And I'll talk about that in another video because I know it sounds a little woo. Something to keep in mind when I say that our souls choose our bodies and based on, geographic locations, is that time is all happening at once. So it's very easy for our soul to tap into different moments of our life and kind of just be there and experience it and see, is this the right fit for me? Will this serve me the best way that I need it to? Will I enjoy this life? That also goes into play. So that's an important thing to remember when I say that. Truth number 3 is that our souls pre-decided which big life challenges that they're going to face in this lifetime. So an example that comes from Journey of Souls is there was this one patient that Michael Newton had that came to him and said that she had pain in her thighs. Her whole life, she'd gone to doctors, she couldn't figure out why it was there. And they would always say, you're perfectly fine, that, you're in perfect health. And when Michael Newton dug a little deeper, he realized that in the past life, the soul had chosen a life where it was a girl, and when the girl was 6 years old, she was run over by a carriage and both of her legs were broken. And so she lived most of her life paralyzed, and then she died very young. And the challenge there and the soul need that was completing is that it was forcing the soul to develop its intellect. And then Michael Newton dug a little bit deeper, and he asked the soul to describe the most physically healthy life that it had lived. And the soul described having this Viking life, being this man who was so healthy, never got sick, was strong as steel, and basically all of that is to say that whatever challenges that we have on this human plane are all meant to bring our souls to ultimate balance. So just like the soul needed to have this life where it was strong and healthy and strong as steel, on the other end of that, it needed that karmic cycle to be complete and create that balance of having a life where it was paralyzed for most of its life and had to develop the intellect and those things that you don't develop as much when you're so physically active in a life. Truth number 4, there is a heaven, and that is known as the spirit world. And something that we need to understand about the spirit world is it has no concept of negativity or negative emotions or hatred. The spirit world, because it has no concept of hatred or jealousy or things like that, our souls do not get to develop the skills that they need to create that balance that I talked about in the spirit world. So that's the reason that they incarnate. So while there is a heaven and it is blissful and it is all loving, it isn't serving all of the soul's needs. So they can achieve certain things through different challenges in the spirit world, but they're not the way that we experience challenges in the physical plane. Truth number 5, just like there is a heaven, there is also a hell. However, hell is not this, traditional sense of it's fiery and your eternal misery and all these things. Hell is actually a period of self-reflection for the soul. It's a period of isolation and self-reflection. Oftentimes, this is just a healing period actually for the soul. When a soul has a particularly heavy life and a particularly difficult life that is filled with suffering, misery, and all of these things that the soul has no concept of, that the soul has a difficult time dealing with, when the soul has a particularly difficult life, when they come back to the spirit world, they kind of just need time to decompress and to process what happened and to just be in isolation. So the hell that we describe here in that sense is just them processing all of the suffering and misery and all the negativity that they had to experience in this world. Truth number 6, you have soulmates, and they are intended to complete certain karmic cycles and teach you certain lessons in this lifetime. So every soulmate that you have in this life is going to have a very specific purpose for being in your life. Our soulmates come to us as different people. Sometimes they're family members, sometimes they are our friends, and of course sometimes they are our romantic partners. But regardless of what form they come to us in, they always have a specific lesson that they need to teach us, or some kind of karmic cycle that needs to be completed through that relationship. Regardless of our soulmate's relationship to us, it's important to remember that we made an agreement with that soul before we came to this planet. So whatever happens was basically predetermined in order to get that karma in, that karmic cycle. Oftentimes, Michael Newton has seen a lot of cases where souls will return from their human life, and they'll realize that someone that they had a very difficult relationship with in this particular lifetime, or someone or an abusive relationship in any level, emotional or physical or verbal, oftentimes those souls realize that the person who is doing this to them, they had made an agreement with before this lifetime, and they had come to this decision that they needed to create that balance, and they came to this agreement with the soul to have this kind of dynamic, this kind of relationship. And that's not to say that you should tolerate anyone that is abusive in your life, just being like, oh, we're soulmates. Don't do that. But it is to say that there's a reason for it, most likely. It's not just happening because it's happening. There is some kind of purpose, and there's some kind of lesson that you need to learn, such as setting boundaries and overcoming that and valuing yourself more, or learning to get out of that situation. Whatever the lesson is, that's up to you to learn. But I don't want you to think that because I'm saying the person who's causing a very difficult time for you is your soulmate, you should stay near them. No. While I talk about these different kinds of relationships, there are obviously always going to be positive ones and negative ones, and that'll just depend on each soulmate. That brings me to my next point, which is that you have spirit guides that are there, that are constantly there to help you and to guide you if you request for their help, or if they see that you need that help. Sometimes they are called our angels, sometimes they're called spirit guides. Regardless, we have as souls these other souls who are more advanced than us, who help us and guide us. And because of the nature of how multidimensional our souls are, these spirit guides that we interact most with on the spiritual plane, we can call upon them to help us in this lifetime if we choose to. It's not something that you have to do, but it can make your life a lot easier and give you a lot more direction in where you're going if you really feel lost and you really feel like you need that guidance and you don't want to feel alone while you're going through these things. And if you want to learn how to do that, make sure you click on that notification bell, because in my next video, I'm going to be talking about how you can utilize your spirit guides and start speaking to them and getting help from them on a daily basis. If you want to learn more about the soul journey, about the law of attraction, about shifting your mindset, then make sure you check out these videos right here. And until my next video, I hope you have a good week and I hope you have a good day. Love ya. Bye.